Hello, Cardano enthusiasts. My name is John. Have you ever wondered what goes on behind the scenes at a Cardano stake pool? What does it take to start and run a stake pool? How much time does it take? How much does it cost? What questions would you ask if you could? Well, let's get this interview started. The interviewer, Amir Sabirovich, is managing director at Interworks, an information technology company. He'll be interviewing Ronald Spann, technical lead at Ada for Profit Stake Pool, and Hassan Michael, technical lead for DAP 360 Stake Pool. You can learn more about those gentlemen in the description below. Most stake pools also have non-technical members, and that's why yours truly will also be on the panel. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to the introduction of Ada Pools, Ada for Profit. I'm together tonight with Ronald, Hassan, and John. And before we kick off the questions, technical questions, business questions, let's first hear from these guys who they are and what they're doing. And then let us introduce Ada for Profit to you. So who would like to kick off?
John, you can kick off.
All right, very good. Well, my name is John York. I actually live in California, United States. And I've been involved in Cardano investing since 2018. I got very interested because of the transparency of Charles Hoskinson on YouTube. And my background is I've been in manufacturing for about 30 years. And that's my story.
Okay, good. Thank you, John. My name is Ronald, short Ron. I'm co-owner of Ada for Profit. I run my own businesses. I'm involved in some startup businesses. Basically, I'm in information technology, dealing with AI, machine learning, and blockchain. So hence my interest in Cardano as one of the blockchain projects which is going, and I was early drawn into the project in 2017 when Cardano did its ICO. I start reading the white papers, and on basis of that I choose basically to follow the project along, and I'm still here. So that's basically my story.
Good afternoon, guys. I'm Hassan Michael. I'm from South Florida. Originally, I'm from Liberia, West Africa. I started the Cardano, what you call investment back in 2017 in October. And one of the primary reasons I joined the project is because of Charles Huskinson's vision for the project in terms of scientific rigor, in terms of bringing some evidence to productivity and solving a real world problem. And I think primarily I like the fact that Cardano tried to give a level playing field to the little guys in the blockchain world. Since 2017, I've spent almost every week looking at the project in some shape or form. We started our stake pool back in December of 2019, yeah, with the ITN. And by profession, I'm a software developer, been a software developer over the last 14 years. And hopefully I can become a DApp developer and focus more on functional programming, thanks to Cardano.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the introduction. So let me kick it off. If you would explain Cardano to a 5-year-old, what is Cardano?
John?
Not all at once.
Okay, I'll jump in here. I would explain it as a blockchain, as something. It's like being at the store. You have items that you want to buy. You got to go through the cashier, and then that's where the transactions are recorded. So a blockchain is just like that. It records a transaction, puts them into a block, and those go on a blockchain. And Cardano attaches that to very useful purposes, and as Hassan was saying, to real world problems, that solutions can be made.
And when you first hear about Cardano, what caught your attention? Why only? Because there are zillions of various alternative distributed ledgers that are offered online, right? So why Cardano? What caught your attention in here?
I'll take that. When I first encountered Cardano, I think apart from the vision, just looking at the software technology, what caught my attention is the functional programming first. Because from a software developer perspective, I like the fact that just with functional programming, you basically avoided things like global variables. And I think as a software developer, you can appreciate that because it takes away ambiguity. And ambiguity in finance is something that is very, very important. I look at Solidity, which is Ethereum programming for smart contract. And I could see how it was easy for errors to creep in your code because of global variable that would change outside of function. And functional programming is one thing that eliminates that. So that really attracted me about the Cardano project. But in addition also was the fact that they were building a project not based on hype, because at the time when I first encountered Cardano, it was the ICO maniac. And you had basically just about every project making some kind of, I would say, bogus claim about the productivity, about what they could do. And Cardano was one of the projects that basically steer away from hype and try to at least prove their productivity based on evidence, based on scientific rigor. So that attracted me to the project initially.
I think that was also the reason for me. I read the white papers and they were of a complete different level than most of the projects because they basically do validation also. So a lot of researchers are involved in it, which having a PhD degree. So it was kind of different than the normal business teams, I would say. Because most of the projects came with an ID. They basically they gathered some people, yeah, just to have a face, yeah, and presented to the outside world as the project, where basically one of the persons had their idea and nothing was paved out yet, nothing was planned along the road. And here it had a complete different feeling about the project because things were scoped basically, and there was like a roadmap.
So if I understand you correctly, Cardano has a much more fundamental approach towards development and roadmap from both technological perspective as to the appliances and application of the technology.
Exactly, and not only from the development perspective, but I think also from the business perspective. Because they really also have a team of really experienced business people who are in the field, basically laying connections to governments, etc., to get basically their blockchain rolled out. And I think this is a big difference. Most of the projects are technical teams who are starting to build a product and then still have to think about the business side. How do we push it to the market?
All right. So talking about business, I believe two of you or all three of you are stake pool operators. So what is a stake pool operator?
Hassan, I leave that one to you.
I'll let John go.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. So the proof of stake protocol, which is how Cardano settles the transactions, really it's not feasible for each ADA owner to have a node that it has to sync to the blockchain. So it only makes sense that those would have to be grouped together somehow. And so the vision of Cardano is they're starting with 150 pools that could become 1,000 in the future, where they will have individual ADA owners will delegate to those pools, consolidating them, and then of course that will be spread worldwide among these pools that actually mint the blocks of the blockchain.
Maybe I can fill that in a little bit better, John. So what is the role of the stake pool operator? A blockchain basically needs validators. And that means a block contains transactions. Yeah, these transactions is basically these individual transactions are sealed with a cryptographic key. Also, the block itself is being hashed with a key. And the role of a stake pool or a miner, which we know from Bitcoin, is basically to verify such a block. Yeah, a block with transactions, to make sure that this block or the individual transactions within the block are not tampered. Yeah, and on basis of that, a stake pool gets basically a reward. So the role of a stake pool operator is basically to run a node similar to a miner with Bitcoin that gets assigned a block which needs to be validated. And this assignment of block in the proof of stake mechanism is basically done on basis of a lottery. Yeah, so every stake pool operator that is running a node, yeah, gets assigned a block on basis of a lottery and needs to validate that block if that block is correct and not tampered. Once that is the case, he will sync that back to all the other nodes in the network. And those nodes in the network are basically saying, well, the outcome which you are saying is correct. I agree with that, yes or no. If that's the case, you will get the reward. So it's basically a validation mechanism.
And is it one to many? So you have one stake pool operators and then you have thousands or million nodes, or how does that work?
I'll take that. Basically, you have as many nodes as possible, provided if these nodes given a block to write to the blockchain. So in the Cardano ecosystem, you have what you call the node producing blocks, which are stake pools with the valid certificate credentials with the right amount of stake that would enable them to write a block at a particular slot time. Now, you also have what you call relay nodes. Relay nodes, you can think of one as the Daedalus wallet, for example, which also participate in the blockchain, but they don't produce a block. So while there may be 1,000 actual stake pool nodes that are capable and ready to write a block based on the stake and what they are scheduled to write, you might have maybe 3 times the number in relay nodes. For example, the DAP 360 stake pool, which is what we run down here from South Florida, we have one stake pool node that writes block, and then we have 2 relay nodes that basically back up our stake pool node, but also participate in the blockchain by recording blocks from other peers within the network.
And how do you spread your news about Cardano regarding this? Actually, you're trying to get as many nodes as you want, as you need, or actually to multiply them. How do you do this?
You mean marketing, or you mean?
Yeah. From marketing perspective, can I apply as a person and I can get a node and I will start mining, or how does it work?
Yeah, anybody can create a stake pool node at this point. Basically, it's as simple as getting a computer, downloading the Cardano client software, which is the stake pool software, and you have a node up. I think the biggest part of the issue is acquiring enough stake because the amount of block you write on the chain is directly based on the amount of stake you have, and to a degree, the lottery system for that specific epoch. So acquiring delegates is a little bit difficult. I think for me, what I've seen, my observation is the bigger your social media footprint and the more you do for the Cardano community, I think that lends itself to you being out there and acquiring more delegates. So I think the key to acquiring more delegate in the system is doing more for the community in terms of producing, content, in terms of producing network related social media content.
I think you're right with that, Hassan. There are some stake pool operators that were very early in the game. So they are also from ITN. Actually, I'm also from the ITN phase, but I wasn't public visible. And there were some stake pool operators that were from the beginning very visible to the public, having their own YouTube channels. And they basically grow a community by contributing on a regular basis content to that YouTube channel. And next to that, you also have stake pool operators that are providing solutions to the community. For example, there are some tool sites where you can follow basically the results of a stake pool. And those people were able to attract a lot of delegation, or with other words, every person who owns ADA basically can delegate their ADA to a stake pool to get a return on that stake. And that delegation is basically being used to secure the network. Yeah, and how does that work? There's always in a proof of stake protocol there, and in a blockchain protocol, there's a chance that there is a certain group of people that acquires so much stake in the network that they can gain control. Like that's the 51% attack. So if I would gather together with Hassan and with some other stake pool owners, and we would be able to get 50% of all ADA that is in circulation in our hands, in our stake pools, we could basically control that network. Well, that is of course against the rules of blockchain, because the blockchain is basically saying decentralization and not centralization. So there are all kinds of mechanisms in the blockchain protocol and also in the Cardano protocol to prevent basically this from happening.
Again, what are the advantages of the POS consensus protocol over POW for a stake pool operator?
Well, for a stake pool operator, it's much cheaper to run a proof of stake protocol, because you basically just need a computer. It can be a laptop, can be a server, but it can be even, let's say, a Rock Pi, yeah, which is a very small device consuming less energy. And this is also one of the things, of course, with the proof of stake protocol, because you can run it on such a small device, it's not consuming a lot of energy. And instead of a proof of work protocol, you need GPUs basically and ASIC miners, yeah, which consume a huge amount of energy, and that's not eco-friendly at all. And actually, proof of stake is, I would say, it's an evolvement of Bitcoin, which is running on basis of proof of work, and of Ethereum, which is still running on basis of proof of work, but is trying to move to proof of stake.
Right, and how many? Sorry.
Let me add to that a little bit more to what Ronald said. Basically, Ronald is right. The proof of work protocol is one thing that uses a lot of energy. It's not eco-friendly to the environment, as in the case of Bitcoin. So that's quite correct. And proof of stake allow you to run a blockchain in a more eco-friendly way, as Cardano is doing. But I think one of the key to proof of stake protocol is that it allowed the stakeholders in that system, in that blockchain, to also dictate the future of who the one writing a block to the chain. Because, for example, in the proof of work, if you are a stakeholder in, let's say with Bitcoin, and you don't like a certain miner, there's nothing you can do about it, because there's no way you can affect change by basically withdrawing your stake, because the protocol is not based on stake, it's based on work, which is done by computers. And if you can afford a bigger computer, then obviously you have more say in the system. But with proof of stake protocol, basically you have the stakeholder, if they don't like what a miner is doing or what a stake pool is doing, they can withdraw the stake from that stake pool. And by withdrawing the stake from that stake pool will have less delegate. With less delegate, they'll be able to write less block. And with no delegates, basically they will be participating in the stake pool but doing nothing. So I think that's one of the biggest advantages of proof of stake. It allows the stakeholders within the blockchain ecosystem to actually participate in who is a legitimate stake pool transaction.
I think that's also true, Hassan, but that's not the complete story yet. That's one part of the story. Complete story is, of course, the governance which comes in, which Cardano will also introduce at a later stage. And then you get something like a voting mechanism, voting rights for delegators. And on basis of voting rights, stake pools can be punished if they are doing things which are not right to the system. And that is the real power, because then a complete stake pool will be isolated. If they are doing something that is not right, it's not an individual staker, but it will be a group of stakers that is punishing that.
No, I think that right now that is available. I mean, we don't have to wait for Voltaire for that. I gave you a typical example. In the ITN, there were two pools. And I'll name them specifically because they're not in they currently are not in the mainnet. One was the Lion pool, and they were engaged in an adversarial block, which was back then in the ITN. They were basically trying to game the system by having two nodes running at the same time. And that created a headache for a lot of people. And basically those guys were approached and they didn't change the behavior, but the stake pool operators were able to go on social media and tell people not to stake to them. And eventually they were punished, as you said, Ronald, in that way, because the stake dropped and they couldn't write a whole lot of block. And I won't be surprised that that's the reason why today you don't see a pool ticker Lion currently in the mainnet, because that brand was damaged by delegates.
Yeah.
All right, so let's switch to the more the efficient side, or how to get people to be drawn to this. So how many hours would you say it takes to set up a pool?
Well, depends on the complexity of the pool.
Okay, the most complex one. We don't do easy. We don't do easy.
But basically, if you're just installing one pool with one node, which you can do, it wouldn't take you a long time. If you are proficient in Linux or in Windows, basically on basis of VSDL, you could.
But give me timestamps.
Well, you could.
It won't take me enough time.
If you have the knowledge of Linux, you can set it up in one day like that. But that's not the complete story, because that's just installing the software. There's more involved to it. You have to arrange a bunch of things to also make sure that your pool is secure.
Okay.
So,
and how much time? So that's more maintaining and servicing your pool. So you installing is one day.
And automating, making it easy, so you don't have to put all the time in.
Okay. So let me rephrase. Sorry, Hassan. Let me rephrase my question. So setting up a pool and doing all that is necessary to be able to run it. How much time? And I'm talking hours.
Okay. I will speak from my experience. From the point of, basically, I set these up several times just to make sure I got experience during the Haskell testnet. From the point of setting up the actual computer to the point where I would say I have a stake pool node ready to write a block, two ways here. If I do it what we call manually, that is without using any script, it took me anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. to basically set up the pool. That is setting up 2 relay node on Linux CentOS 8. Also making sure that the SSH ports are secure, making sure the actual computer is secure from from attack, to installing the certificates, setting up the delegate cert for my stake pool, all the way to actually including the meta hash on the blockchain for my pool. So it took me somewhere between, I would say, half an hour to 45 minutes. Now, if I'm running a script, it should be somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes with some of the scripts that are out there. I think there's CN Tools, which helps out, and there's also another stake pool operator called Martin, whose script we use. So that's just for setting it up, but that doesn't include, like Ron said, maintaining it over time.
And what do you have any estimation on that, or is that on daily basis?
Oh, I can,
so much hours?
I can tell a little bit about my timing I put in it. Well, I'm quite proficient with Linux, and I spend a lot of more time in it because I'm having a complete different setup. I'm working with microservices, and that involves, of course, creating your own containers, which are basically portable, which you can move anywhere to any other server which you like. And you have to set up certain clusters for that. So it's a lot of more time was for me involved than doing just a native install. I could have done a native install as well, but then I wouldn't have the benefits of being portable, being able to pull it from a registry and move it to another computer. So for example, we, with ADA for Profit, we have like 9 nodes.
Yeah.
Including with pool, it's 10 nodes. And that includes backup, that includes hidden nodes. So there's a lot of work involved to have that done. And that's the same when we have to change, for example, the node software. It's not like you, well, of course, I'm making an image which I'm pushing into a registry and I'm pulling it down at another server. But to be able to do that, I had to prepare a lot of infrastructure for that.
All right, that's an interesting point. So now I want to know, because what I hear is that Hassan spent a lot less time than you did, Ronald. So if we set aside your investment in ADA, how much did you spend on your stake pool? If you're comfortable saying. So what was your investment on fixed costs and operational costs?
I think for every one of us, if we put the hours on the table.
Hey, that's interesting.
Well, we are involved already from ITN, and that goes back how far? It goes back to 2019, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so let's not calculate the hours, because if you would calculate that, you would cut probably very soon from the investor's perspective, but more from the fixed costs and operational costs. So looking to your systems, looking to your operating applications and whatnot. Do you have any estimation?
Yeah, I do. Again, we adapt 360, Pool Taker D360. We try to run our pool as a business, not just as a hobby. So that requires us to be a little bit more organized in terms of our expenses. So we have at the moment 3 pools. We have 1 pool, 2 relays, and each of those computers right now is about, I would say, $99 we're running. We can run it on far less hardware. That will cost us a VPS that will cost us maybe around $15-20, and that will come up to $60. But our entire infrastructure cost is about $300. That's because we're using a bare metal server, and we go in far beyond what the requirements are. And that because we run a business, we're looking at long term. The blockchain gonna grow bigger and bigger over time, and we don't want to be in the business of constantly changing or upgrading VPS as time goes by. So just on the infrastructure cost, we're looking at about $300 a month in terms of, you know, hardware cost. Now, marketing cost is a little bit more difficult because it comes back to hours input, and it's hard for me to quantify how much time I spend on Twitter trying to, you know, make connections, or how much time I spent on the Cardano forum and other social media outlets trying to acquire delegates. But I do have things like MailChimp, which I pay for on a monthly basis to keep in contact with my delegates, at least the ones that have created a relationship with us. That's about what, $9 a month. And also I have other avenue like meetup group or Zoom meetings that we pay for. So the marketing, I think, is a little bit more expensive than the actual infrastructure. I mean, we spend $300, but there are stake pools that are running the entire infrastructure under $100. I can tell you that. We as a business opted not to go with that because of a little bit more security. We wanted something more robust, and we wanted something long term. So.
And what would you like delegators to know about your stake pool? That's for all three of you, actually.
Maybe I could start out, excuse me, with that. We like to let our delegators know, excuse me, like to let them know that they can learn when they delegate or join our YouTube channel, for example, or we have a Telegram channel that's quite active, and we have delegators that we've come to know, and they know they can turn to us for answers to any questions they might have. And I think that's really key, because that's what drew me to Cardano in the first place. I referred to it earlier about Charles Hoskinson being so transparent and open about what's going on. And so I appreciated that. And Ron and I in ADA for Profit pool, we want to do the same thing and provide the same service to our delegators or those who subscribe to our YouTube channel, and be open and educate them and help them to understand how this whole thing works.
Okay. DAP360 pool ticker D360. If you visit our website, which is dap360.co, you will see basically what the DAP360 pool stands for. We call it PPPI. PPI, which is passion, performance, and integrity. Basically, passion. We have a strong desire for the Cardano ecosystem. We want to see it be advanced. We want to see it be adopted on a massive level. And based on that passion, we have delegated our personal time, as did we, because I have a co-organizer, Matt, who is my stake pool operator. We want to see the ecosystem become a prominent, if not the #1 blockchain being used. We also talk about performance. Performance, basically, if you go with the DAP360 pool, you can rest assured that if we schedule a block, we are going to write that block. That's why we got the big system. That's why we opted to go with a bare metal server. Cardano recommends 4 gig. We have 32 gig of RAM memory on our server. So that's where the performance comes in. No matter the workload, we are ready to produce. And the last thing is integrity. With our stake pool, we try to treat people not just as numbers. We want people to know, even if you're a delegate and you remain anonymous, you will be treated fairly. We're not going to try to game the system. Everybody want to profit, but not everybody. We are not going to make a profit at your demise. We're not going to be deceptive. We're not going to be misleading, and we're going to be transparent. That's one of the key tenets of a blockchain: open and transparent. So that's what you're going to get from the DAP360 stake pool: performance, passion, and integrity.
That's the same for ADA for Profit. You get the same. We are providing that. And next to that, we are providing also solutions on Cardano. So we are going to build solutions ourselves on the Cardano ecosystem. So we have our own team of software developers. Basically, I told already I have my own company. And with my own company, we are also developing solutions on blockchain. We already did that on Ethereum. That's also the reason why we are very interested in Cardano. So we know all the background of Ethereum, all the problems we encountered over there. And we see a lot of these problems being solved by the Cardano solution. And that's why we are keen on building on this solution, because we can see this will be most likely one of the most used blockchains in the future. That's our convincement about this blockchain. And that's why we are putting this time and effort in it, because basically if we would do that just as a stake pool operator, well, hopefully we can get enough delegation to say, well, we can make an income of that. But I don't see that at the moment so easily happening. I think most stake pool operators are running their stake pool operation as a passion and not as a profitable business. Of course, it would be nice to be able to do that, but I think that's the current situation. And like I said, you should contribute something, you should do something you like. If you're having a hobby, of course, you put a lot of effort and time in it, and it may cost something. Well, Cardano is also like a hobby, but for us, it's more like that because we also want to pull a business out of it by building solutions on it.
Right, and so actually what you're offering also to the delegators, a community of exchanging knowledge and advancing each other.
Yeah,
if I understood it correctly.
Yeah. I think that's both for DAP 360 is that. As for us, we have our own channels. In those channels, we communicate with our delegators. We keep them informed. We are posting information on Twitter and other social media channels, which is related to Cardano. What are the developments, and making people aware what is going on and which direction this is going.
And guys, we have talked about setting up a pool, maintaining a pool. I get a feeling you really need to be a very technical person. So do you need to be a programmer or a developer to set up and run a stake pool?
Let me answer that, because I originally was intended on having a stake pool myself, and I am not very, I don't know Linux and things like that. So I was able to spin up a node and kind of get started, but I learned right away that even if I got to the point of creating it, the ongoing maintenance would probably, maybe delegators wouldn't know, but behind the scenes would be someone not so knowledgeable. And that's why I opted to reach out, and I met Ron, and we teamed up together. And so, yeah, I can say that it would be, as it was spoken of, it's an easy thing to do, but for ongoing, you have to have the expertise behind it.
And
right.
To add to that, what John said is that, yes, anybody can set up a stake pool. You will find resources readily available online, and if you can follow instructions, you would do it. But the difference is with expertise, technical expertise, it might take me half an hour or 2 hours to do. With somebody who is not a Linux admin or is not highly technical, it might take them a day. So what it comes down to is, do you want somebody who can do the job in the shortest possible time, or you want somebody who, yes, they can do the job, but it takes them all day or a week to do? So based on that, I'd rather go with a guy who can do it in the shortest possible time, because eventually that ends up being money, right? Time is money. So if you don't know it's more expensive, you know it is cheaper.
I can add to that. That's it. I can add to that as well. Basically during the testnet or Haskell testnet, I helped a lot of pool operators basically setting up their system. And many of the pool operators, and I won't mention any names, are pure here from interest into blockchain, having that as a hobby, setting that up as a hobby. And well, they can run a node, but they don't really know what they are doing. They are executing commands like a copy and paste without knowing what they are really doing on their system, because they are missing the experience. And of course, the system of blockchain is basically then everybody can contribute to it, But I wouldn't say that these are typically the people that should operate a pool, stake pool. Why? Because they are missing the expertise. They don't have the background in the security, how to protect basically the assets. And of course, it's nice to do that as a hobby, but there's also risk involved.
Yeah.
So setting up and running a stake pool, that takes some knowledge. That goes for the delegators as well, I assume.
No, setting up the stake pool, yeah, like Ron said, it has some risk associated with it. So you do need some technical skill set to be able to secure the node. Remember, when you set up a node, you also put in your pledge account on it. And that's real money. If you're not careful, you could lose that. You could lose that to a hacker. Forget about them just breaking into your system to mess it up, but you could lose real money. But as far as delegates, the way in which Cardano set up the system is that they use a staking account to delegate with a stake pool. And what the staking account does is it removes the actual, what you would call the money with the funds from what they actually stake to a pool. So there's really no risk involved. Absolutely no risk. I shouldn't say really, absolutely no risk involved there. And the process of delegating is about a three-step process. So you don't have to be technical to delegate. There's no risk and there's no technicality involved in delegating to a pool, at least from a delegate perspective who is not a stake pool operator.
I agree to a certain extent with you, Hassan.
Okay.
There's still the risk, of course, running your wallet on your own machine, and you need to know how to protect that as well, and how to protect your keys from your wallet. And this is also something, of course, that is part of the delegation. But I agree completely with you. The three steps. Once you have your wallet installed, once you have your ADA basically in your wallet, it's nothing else than choosing one of the pools out of the pool list and basically saying, click, I want to delegate. You put in your spending password and you're done. And your ADA is still under your control. It's basically just a referral key that goes to the pool and nothing else. Your ADA is not being transferred to the pool. It still stays in your own wallet and in your own ownership.
And let me just,
and guys, oh, sorry.
Let me
Go
just
ahead,
add
John.
really briefly, Amir. The other small risk is that you might not get rewards if you're with a pool, if you're with a pool that doesn't have, as we've talked about, doesn't have the knowledge behind it, and you miss blocks, that can affect the rewards.
So let's talk rewards. So if I understood you correctly, of course, there should be more delegators and then there would be more rewards. What is the business model behind this? I mean, I know ADA, I've bought some ADA, but for me, I'm just doing it just to see where it will end. But this is another type of game. So how does that work? You get rewarded in ADA, or you get rewarded in dollars, or what is the mechanism?
I'll start. Basically, so the idea behind the stake pools, number one, is to allow these stake pool nodes to actually, number one, decentralize the system, and number two, secure the system also. The more nodes, the more we can avoid a 51% attack. That's a good thing. The more nodes, the more robust the system is in terms of writing transactions to the to the blockchain faster. So to incentivize people to participate, because the more the better in this case, rewards are offered. And these rewards are actually IDA. They come to you in the form of an IDA reward. And based on the monetary value of IDA, whether it's in US dollar or it's in, yen or whatever it is, or euro, you'll be able to recoup the monetary value. Now, how does it work in terms of what you get back? It's a little difficult because pool charge, different fees, and but overall, in a nutshell, you should, if you delegate to a pool, you should get a reward every epoch if that stake pool wrote a block, at least a block or several blocks. You should get your reward, and the reward is proportional to the stake that you delegated in the entire system. So if you have 1% of the stake and the stake pool write 10 blocks, you should be entitled to at least 1% of the reward minus the stake pool fees, whether it's the operating costs or the fixed costs. So that's how it works. But it's a little bit more difficult to say how much a delegate would get specific, because there's so many moving factors involved from one stake pool to the next. I know at DAP 360 we charge at 3%, and we have a fixed cost of 340 IDA. So whatever rewards we get, that is subtracted, and then what you receive is proportional to your stake.
And that's also depending on the complexity
Well,
of the block.
No, it's not dependent on the complexity of the block. It's basically a lottery system, and you have higher probability if you have more delegation.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And where do you see the biggest concerns regarding the Cardano project? So it's not only fluffy unicorns and teddy bears, I assume.
For me, is I think looking at the IDA project, there are a couple of things. First, you have first to market projects. That's your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your Ripple, which is XRP, even Bitcoin Cash, and some of the other big names in the top 10, and some of the other small companies that were never in the top 10, like Chainlink. So I think that first to market advantage puts Cardano, as a horse coming from behind. And I think if those are underestimated, thinking that maybe Ethereum would just, the infrastructure is not good enough, and therefore Cardano will catch up and surpass it. I think that is a risk for me, from my perspective, because these guys are so ingrained in the blockchain industry now that to just knock them off will be difficult. They have built trust, they have built a network, they have built an ecosystem that is a recognizable brand, and for all its technical prowess, Cardano having built up the name brand and exposure that Ethereum has. So I think that's a big thing. And I think one thing I'm a little worried about for me is that Cardano tend to pivot more to the scientific and evidence-based way of doing things, which is great, but that in of itself kind of sometimes slows you down in the business world. It's not always the best guy who wins. Sometimes, sometimes people need solution, they need it now, and over time, they'll consider you, but for now, they're gonna use the guy who has something to offer. We don't have smart contracts yet, and that's something. Yes, it's gonna be coming down the line, but it would have been great if Shelley was released with Goguen at the same time. And I want to be a DApp developer, but there's not much I can do with Plutus at its time, other than what I see in the Plutus playground. So those are.
And what about the recent hack and a loss of 1 million ADA? One of the stake pool operators. That's not a worry or a risk, or?
No, it's not a risk, because like Ronald said, I take 30 to 40 minutes to set up a stake pool, but I better know what I'm doing, and I better know the complexity of my stake pool. He takes a day because he has a more complex cluster of pools he runs. So as a stake pool operator, you do have to know the risk. And in this case, it wasn't, this hack was not based on the Cardano client software. It was based on operator's error. And I know who you're talking about is the happy stick pool, and he did admit what he did wrong, you know, leaving a hole in the system. So the risk is not associated with that.
Okay.
I see another risk, which I also want to put on the table, and I'm completely agree with the first notes that Hassan made. Ethereum is already a brand, has many years of experience in the market, has built a great network of relations. Many companies are developing on Ethereum, while Cardano still has to start with that. And for that, we need smart contracts. So that's promised for the end of the year. So we are hopeful for that. But still, we still have to see the proof that it's there, that we can start building on it. But another thing is the underlying technology, which is based on a programming language called Haskell. And Haskell is not really being adopted in the market like programming languages like Java or Go language, which are not used on blockchain, but there are some languages which are more adopted. Solidity is much more adopted than Haskell. So it's much easier to find programmers for it. So to get new developers into the ecosystem, companies need to invest in building up knowledge on Haskell if they don't have it. Or they have to go to the market, but the market is very limited related to Haskell developers. It's much easier to find Solidity developers. So this is another concern which we have to overcome and which Cardano has to overcome, basically to get more adoption.
Yeah, just to add to what Ronald said, it's good he brought it up. That's something that worried me, and when you asked the question, it just didn't come to mind, but it's good he brought it up because Haskell is not one of the easy language to learn. For most of my career, I've been object-oriented developer. And Haskell is on the functional side, which involves a little bit more mathematical way of thinking. And that's why you see every single website is not done in Haskell. So people land in Plutos, and I have taken a look at it. You're not going to have a whole lot of developers flocking in. So the pool of available developers going to be somewhat limited. Now, mind you that your entire dApp application doesn't have to be written in Haskell. It's just the on-chain code that have to be in Haskell. But even at that, you want to make sure these guys who are managing transaction and managing fees per transaction are doing things accurately. Because while there's no room for error in terms of the code, there's still room for human error in terms, basically you can't stop people from doing stupid things even with the right tools, is where I'm going. So you need educated Haskell developer, and that might pose a problem for dApp developers to just make that switch from Solidity to Plutos. So it's a concern of mine too.
Right, and knowing these concerns and etc., how does your stake pool planning to contribute to the Cardano community or ecosystem? How are you going to do that? So what are you giving back or paying it forward?
At that 360, since I started, interacting and engaging Cardano, I've always been one to try to evangelize the ecosystem to other people. Most of it comes from my excitement. I want to tell people how great of a software it is. From a software developer perspective, sometimes I do look at what these guys are doing, and it brings a smile to my face. The first time I read the Haskell language and saw what it could do, I sat at the table and smiled because it's a beautiful language. And to do what it did in Haskell, write an entire blockchain, is a beautiful and elegant thing. I admire it. So that of itself, gets me passionate about the ecosystem, and it shows in my evangelism of Cardano, and that can be seen in, for example, we we created down here in South Florida. One of the things we did was create the first Cardano meetup group. You know, you can still find that right now on Meetup at Cardano, South Florida. We try to distance ourselves, the company D360, from the Cardano, South Florida, just because it's one of Cardano requirement for running a community. But we try to build up a robust community over here. We try to make sure as many people as possible are aware that AIDA is another cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is not the only one. We try to let people know, hey, if you have questions down here, there are places you can find answers. So we make ourselves really available on Twitter, on Telegram, you know, on Reddit, to answer questions about Cardano. And you can see that because when we first started Cardano South Florida, the meetup group we started, there were only 2 or 3 people, and now we are up to 100 and I think 57 the last time I checked. So apparently there's some traction in evangelism. So wish we could do more, but at this point, have a full-time job, so we got to navigate that. Yeah.
And I'll just
Ron and John,
I'll just say that for our YouTube channel, for example, its videos so far have been practical in nature, helping people to understand how to delegate. But going forward, our videos will probably be more education centric, of just letting people learn and understand what Cardano is all about. I think that'll be a slow build as well. We only have not even 50 subscribers yet. But you know, as we go, that's what we're giving back to the community, and also with our blogs that post to Twitter and other social media channels, we're giving back in that way with knowledge.
all right.
And one thing I may add, Amir, I think it right now we're in the process of writing a small software which we hope should be coming out by the end of December. And it's something we want to do for the community. You know, it's probably going to be a dApp Explorer where you can come to and be able to see some of the dApps on the Cardano network. It's something simple, but it's something that should allow people to be able to, you know, to search what are the applications on the ecosystem that either in the pipeline, already on the blockchain, or has already been on the blockchain and died. So that's something too we're working on to at least provide some kind of something useful, some utility to the Cardano community. But it's work in progress, so I don't want to you know, make too much noise yet, because the community will hold you to it.
Be careful what you promise.
The same here. We have a lot of ideas. We have already some worked out, but we are also not communicating that yet to the outside world. Just had a talk with my architect before this meeting. I launched an idea also, which we are gonna introduce for the community. I think it will be very useful, and I think it will also be used a lot, but that's well, just in the work, not something we can already talk about. Once the time is there, we will definitely communicate that to the outside and use it as an advantage, of course, to attract new delegators to our stake pool.
Yeah. Right. So if I can underline it, because we are coming to the end of this webinar, if I can underline it, your guys in for the short exit or the long-term vision?
For me, dApp 360, we're in it for the long term. And when I say long term, as long as Cardano is around, that's why we opted to get bigger and better servers. And as a matter of fact, the dApp 360 brand is more in the consulting business than consulting with Cardano than the actual stake pool. But the stake pool is our way to kind of look under the hood of the the Cardano blockchain, see how transactions are written, see how fees are charged, see how delegates work, how the staking certificates. So it's a way of getting into the engine of the blockchain so that when we are finally ready to provide consulting work to potential clients, we know exactly what we're talking about. So we're in this for the long term. We're in it to write dApps, we're in it to provide consulting, and as we've already started stake pools.
This is the same for ADA for profit. Well, like I said, I'm involved in IT. I have my own business. I'm always looking from the business perspective. What can we do with this solution into the future? And I think especially if you look at Solidity and also the libraries which are being provided in the direction of finance and also into insurance. This is basically the business which we are going after with our company. So that's a match. And we also started this stake pool basically to gain knowledge of the whole ecosystem, to be prepared to basically start building solutions and bring that to the mass. So that's the whole idea. And the stake pool operation is, well, it's something nice aside, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that is a very nice closing of this webinar. John, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I would just add to what Ron and Hassan said, and that is, we want to be a part of this going forward. I mean, we're not just in it for the long haul, but we want to actually have a say in the community as well as it grows stronger. We want to be a part of making it grow stronger.
Well, that is really nice. I wish you guys all the luck. Thank you for enlightening me about Cardano, because I didn't know anything, so I could ask all these questions. I hope the community benefits from your answers as well. And I wish you all great success with it.
Thank you.
Have an awesome evening.
Thank you very much, Amir. And also thank you for hosting this video.
Likewise.
Bye.
See you guys.
Hassan, thank you as well for joining.
Thank you for having me.
There's a lot involved in running a Cardano stake pool. We hope you've learned about what goes on behind the scenes. We hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, hit that notification bell so that you won't miss out on future videos. Cardano, the world's next operating system. Until next time, goodbye.